for showing up, everybody. I really appreciate it. A warm hello, and I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to November, right? And welcome to November. Thanks for being here, everybody. It's really great to have you. Of course, I'm Big Cheds. Probably know me from Twitter at Big Cheds. I am on YouTube, Cheds Trading. That's why you're here now. A lot of great stuff on YouTube. I teach professional technical analysis, Japanese candlestick theory, classical charting. If you're not familiar with my work, I'm a very heavy educational account. I'm just like a super chart nerd. You know, I've read the textbooks, I've done CMT, and I just essentially am trying to help, new traders avoid my old mistakes. I've published 4 books. One of them is my cancer memoir. And the 4 books, they're on Amazon, but they're all free on my YouTube. So there's different playlists, for each book. The most recent one is the Trading Journal, like why you should use a journal, how to fill it out, emotional management, good trader habits. The new thing I've been working on, there's 2 important things. First of all, I just published a great interview in the long form interview series with Chartman Dan, who's one of my mentors. He's excellent. 90 minutes. He's just like no bullshit guy. Check that out. A lot of other great conversations. I have other folks I'm lining up, and then the Trading Encyclopedia. So I just recorded a couple videos today, and every day I publish a new video. Like concepts you may have heard but you're not aware of, and like me, you may not have like a very long attention span, so like 3 minutes is great for me to learn. What's the difference in margin, isolated and cross margin? What is stair stepping? Stay calm under pressure. What's a Maribozu? What's a hollow candle? Sample trading journal entries. What are some of the rules of thumb? Lengths of advance and consolidation. A lot of stuff like nerdy stuff from like CMT, from classical charting. What's a high wave candle? If you follow me on Twitter, I put out a lot of like tweets with academic stuff, and you may not know what I'm talking about. So that's what this playlist is for, and it's 3 minutes. So check that out. And of course, I'm a founding analyst So folks, while I'm getting ready, I would say go ahead and make sure you're subscribed so you can drop a comment in the chat. I would just love to hear from you. I want to hear your comment and your feedback. The last thing I want to say is, if you're looking for somewhere to trade, check out BingX. That is my favorite exchange, and I've worked with them for quite a long time. So definitely consider checking them out. So if you want to, we're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum. We'll do top altcoins. I really want to hear from you today because it's kind of a big moment in the market. I think people, people have some thoughts and feelings. I'd like you to share them with me. We can flesh it out, maybe create some good content. I don't always stream like twice a week. I try to, but really I'm going to stream at least once a week on YouTube. The rest of the time is Bitcoin Live every Wednesday, Sunday night. But while I'm here, I always think of these as precious. I always think of these moments as great opportunities for me to interact with you, to hear what your thoughts and feelings are. We can look at altcoins. We can kind of do whatever you want. I already see a bunch of questions, lining up in the chat room. So just fire away your question. I love your feedback. So what are we thinking about Bitcoin? And I'll riff. As always, the format. I'm just going to riff for a little bit while, and we'll go to the chat room after that. So what are we thinking about Bitcoin here? I mean, we're right at the weekly MA50, and that's kind of been the starting point for pretty much every stream I've done for pretty much all year. And, again, we'll go back and we'll do a quick review of why it's important. If we go back to the 2021 peak, okay, we saw the price advance, and we see the price advance in here, EMA 8, right? Which is primary uptrend support. And I have a video on that, primary and secondary uptrend support. It's in here. You just search for that and what the moving averages are. What's the difference between an EMA and an SMA? It's all here. We'll sort by most popular. So it's all here in, the Trading Encyclopedia playlist. You can find that, especially what my moving averages are, because it will help you to kind of follow along. So, 2021, we were just primary uptrend, and we started to consolidate, and we started to go sideways, and there was an advance towards the weekly MA50, the orange line. And so, again, an EMA is a short-term moving average generally, where it's more sensitive to price. EMA means exponential, so if it's 8 period, the most recent candle had more price weighting than the one, 7 before that. You have 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have more price weighting, and it goes down. It's exponential. But if it's an SMA, it's equally weighted, all 50 candles. And the price held on the move to the weekly 50. It made a lower high, held again, and then it broke out again. We know about the double top, yada, yada, yada. back to the MA50. So what happened was back here, I started to get a little bit concerned. I had originally, back in 2021, if you follow my tweets, I talked about thinking we were going to do an ascending triangle. And I actually had a target for 100K back here. And a lot of people give me credit for nailing the 2021 move. It depends how you want to spin it. Because yes, I did call the top in the exact day, but I was calling for a local top, right? It was November, whatever it was, 10th or 11th. I was calling for local top. I thought we would actually pause here and continue. And what happened was we started to close below the weekly 50. So as soon as we started to close below the weekly 50, I put out tweets and I said, my 100K thesis is dead. We're starting to lose the weekly 50. We're looking for a deeper consolidation. And, what happened after that, so this is the first warning sign, the weekly 50, and this is 2021 review, and we're going to kind of we're going to kind of apply it to today's, price action. We see here pretty much better illustrated on the daily chart what happened after it started to lose the weekly 50. We see here the price set a support level. It did, it was a failed double eve, double bottom, and pretty much the whole market did this. And really for like the following 2 years, if you follow my coverage, other people's coverage, it was measuring where altcoins were in relation to this level. Many of them came down and came back and passed over their late 2021 level at this failed double bottom, and other ones never ever got back above it. But in any case, what the price did was it set this failed double bottom, right? And it broke down. It was resistance. It's resistance, right? It's resistance. It's very well defined. And then the price started to break out again. Oh, we're good. We're all set. And if you remember, I actually called for a long trade here. And then I said the long trade failed. But when that long trade failed, I put out my infamous tweet that some of you remember, where I said, this is back in April of 2022. We're at 45K. I said the run from 12 to 100K will be amazing. That's when I put out this tweet, because it was clear the top was in then. Now, the problem was at that point, we were already down quite a bit. We were already down quite a bit from the pico top. But, from there, you definitely had a pretty good warning, and you were able to avoid a lot of the bloodshed. And then, of course, as a reminder, we all got long 18.5 when I announced it. Other people announced it. Other people got long or like below here, and I'm fine. I'm not trying to like be better than anyone else. Just trying to be the best version of myself. Sentiment bottom, price bottom, and so the weekly 50 was like that first big warning sign. So back to today and why I'm talking about the weekly 50. So as the price had been advancing here, and then here we are, primary uptrend support again, and then weekly 50. So pretty much ever since we started to consolidate back in middle of 2024, I've been saying, let's watch the 50. Move to the 50, it held. Move to the 50, it held. And a lot of people already called top before we really lost the 50, before we had lost the 50. And there's these nice sweeps, and recaptures. If you kind of zoom in, you had all these nice, here's a spring at the MA50, you had another one here. So you had all these like nice options and clean consolidation. What's a little different now is you'll note everything's sideways, right? You'll note everything is sideways. The MA50 is catching up with the price. We're pretty much sideways now for 50 bars, and we're interacting with the MA50. So we have less momentum into it, which is actually going to make it harder to hold, number one. But number two, we're still at the MA50. So there's a couple schools of thought here. And again, and I talk about this in Trading Wisdom, part 1, from 2021. And Trading Wisdom Part 2, which is the Trading Journal. Some of you, welcome your feedback, by the way, for those of you who have the Trading Journal book. But I talk about this in one of the setups where I talk about the first test. It's one of the sample Trading Journal entries. I don't know if I've done it yet, but it's like the first test of long-term moving average. You're really pairing any type of a moving average strategy. You still have to pair it with the nearby horizontal level. And you're still generally in this throwback posture. So we're at the weekly MA50 in throwback posture to this inverted head and shoulders continuation, right? So what do? You say, okay, we're at the weekly 50. I want to go long. I know it's held, but how do I manage my risk? Well, I would have to zoom in a little bit. Let's go to even though we're at the weekly 50, I think you have to look at this structure. For me, I probably, pardon me, I wouldn't necessarily just be going long here. I think I'd want to see a recapture. I'd want to see some type of a bounce and some momentum to ride momentum. And there's a lot of schools of thought on this. But, generally speaking, again, if you want to go long, you want an uptrend that dips. If you want to go short, you want a downtrend that just ripped, because your idea is you want to continue with the broader trend, right? Primary, secondary, and minor trend, right? Dow theory, classical charting. So even though we're at the weekly 50, I think it puts you on watch for an entry. But for me and my style, I'd want to see a recapture, let's say, of like 107.5. I want to ride with momentum, and potentially to continue with, with the MA200. So while on the weekly chart, I'm watching this 50 as a delineator, as a health indicator, if you will, of the strength of the trend, I don't know that you just jump in because price is at the weekly 50, right? It's certainly area of interest. Weekly lower Bollinger dip, weekly lower Bollinger dip. But I think you still have to pair your risk with some type of a, nearby horizontal level. That's why I talk about I think in this case, in this moment, right now, as you're hearing my voice, how I'm playing it. I mean, I still have longs from below, but I'm always taking longs. I'm always taking trades. I got shorts on a ton of altcoins here, and we'll get to those. But I just want to see if I want to take a long in Bitcoin, and there's always what is the next best trade, right? There's always, okay, I missed that. What is the next best opportunity? Well, 107.5. And then there's all these levels above, of course, that you can use to manage your risk, roughly 110. Roughly 116 or even 117.5, which is what I would use. So far above. It's funny to talk about these levels that seem so far above, right? So you have the structure on the weekly chart, which is still an uptrend, which is still arguably in throwback posture. Well, you may wonder, Cheds, don't just throw out terms. I haven't read the textbooks. What are you talking about? What's a throwback? All you got to do, trading encyclopedia. Cheds, what's a throwback? Back. It's a bullish retest. What's a stair step? It's in here. I have a video on stair step, and it's attempting, essentially, still arguably attempting to stair step, right? Still arguably attempting to stair step, right? So that's the case, okay? But it's the difference of, like, you're managing your position. Can you jump in and just take along here because it's at the weekly 50? Not necessarily. Again, with moving average strategy, based on classical charting, based on my interpretation of classical charting, you have to pair it with some horizontal levels, because you've got a little bit of a window here, or a little bit of a vacuum where it's just below lost major support, and you want to be cautious until you get a recapture, which I talked about earlier. So we've got that. I still think you would use, probably 107.5 above, and then you've really got this all critical level. So we talked about the 2021 move. We talked about how important the weekly 50 was, and we've talked about these mean reversions. Mean reversion meaning back to the middle, right? That's the mean, right? So it reverts back to the middle, right? Like, so you call it MA20, right, for example. But here it's just the MA50 and continue. And so, we've been talking about the importance of seeing that hold. This is going to be critical as well, because this is your major swing low. This is where the price... in this nice high and tight, this is a high and tight bull flag that we had, and that was the bottom of the flag, and you just can't. Don't think you can give that up and still, call this uptrend, healthy at that point. So if we start to close below the weekly 50, there will be big warning signs, and if we start to lose this major swing low, circa 98K to 100K zone. That's going to be incredibly concerning. Now, folks, you can just ask me questions. I'm going to get to them, I promise. I'm just riffing. I like to give you a general idea of where I'm coming from, rather than just jumping into the chat, because a lot of people will be asking me. So there's the strength of the trend on the weekly chart. There's the daily levels we talked about, and there's what we need to see hold. The rest of the market is really not holding up as well. Arguably it's Bitcoin. I haven't even looked at Bitcoin dominance in a while, but my guess is it's probably ticking back up a little bit. Yeah, and there it is. So it's ticking back up, and that makes sense. And that's one of those things where you don't even really need to watch dominance, because you can get a sense of, well, Bitcoin's holding up, everything else is puking, right? Like, a lot of these alts are way down. Especially I've got a list of the ones that, I currently have shorts on, and these are just getting absolutely crushed right now, right? And you can look at that in your own time. But so we have the price versus the weekly MA50 at this point, and still generally in a throwback, but this is the critical inflection point. We don't want to see closes below the weekly 50. We have not closed below the weekly 50 since 22K. Okay, 22K. So we want to see that hold. It has held so far, and I still think you can reasonably give bulls deference until that trend bends or until that fact changes. So we're watching the weekly 50. If you want to go long, I think you want to recapture of 107.5, and the critical support is just below. You know, Ethereum had oscillated, had bounced in between this very nice price range between 37.50 and 42.50, and I did put out a tweet right when the price was at 42.50. I'm not going to spend time just clout chasing and going through all my tweets. There's plenty of bad calls too, so you can find those. They're all in there, but it was a very clear test of where prior resistance had been. So you're kind of observing that, and when this is happening, again, as a review, there's two things. You can either take a short, which isn't necessarily proper because you want to be shorting downtrends that bounce, but you could at least be looking to maybe take some profit in a short below. Profit from a long below. But you also can identify this as having been a trigger level. So if it had flipped this, you could have gone long, right? It's just a technique I'm talking about. But it failed there. It faded. We have the evening star pattern. Big green candle, Maribozu if you want, spinning top, red candle back down to support. And there's demand, very clear demand. Look at the wick structure, nice lower wicks, price held, boom, we're below that. So again, what's next, right? You can do this hindsight stuff all the day, and Cheds, what's next? I could tell you that the price is gonna go drop 50K. I'm not saying it will, but then let's say it did. I could put out a tweet and say, hey, look at me, I'm brilliant. And I would get okay, what's next, right? So there's people always want to know what's next. There's always another trade. There's always the next trade. And so again, with Ethereum, 37.50 recapture. So you, even in the middle of this blood, even in the middle of this panic, you want to know like where, what would be the first step to check the thesis. And again, just a general spring is just a nice, easy way to play it. Gets lost, back up above a level. I can use that to manage my risk. And I could stay long, for example, as long as, the level just below holds. So that's how you can play Ethereum. If that fails, what do we think? Okay, so we've got our overhead level similar to we have with Bitcoin. And if that fails, let's go back to the weekly chart. Now, the thing that I don't like necessarily, right? So we have the very well described descending right angle broadening wedge. Okay. And everybody and their mother, their brother, their uncle, the mailman, even the cashier knew this was a big high time frame breakout, and the measured move was 6,500. And there were debates and arguments. Is it 6,500 or is it 9K? Is it 10K? We didn't get near either of those. And this is one thing I had lectured about ad nauseum, which means like over and over again, that price targets are fine, but you can't overlook obstacles. I have a video on this in the Trading Encyclopedia. Obstacle. Here we go. Measured move with obstacle. These are 3-minute videos, guys. Like, just soak it up. And it's the idea of when you have a breakout, even if you have such a very clean pattern, maybe that's a bull rectangle, and you take your measured move, right? If there's just major resistance just above the breakout level, you can't overlook the obstacle on the way to the measured move. And that was the thing with, with Ethereum. So people just when people ask me what's the target, I don't even answer because targets are useless. If you're convince yourself of a target, you can ignore any evidence that might come in the interim. And that's kind of what probably happened for a lot of people who got sidelined, right? So I don't like, to get back to the point I think I was trying to make initially, is I don't like the fact that we're back in the wedge. You don't want to re-enter a consolidation range after breaking out of it, right? For me to have any kind of confidence that we're going to continue to the measured move of this wedge, you want to remain above the peak. This is such a critical structure, right? You have all these data points, right? You have time interval, this classical charting term, time interval in between. I have a video on time interval. And then you have price distance, peak to trough, well-defined level, and just you're back in the range, not looking good. So, I'd say probably your overhead level, we talked about 37.50. If not, there's no reason we don't drop back down to the 28.50 range. kind of in the middle of the channel and see if we hold there. Now, again, this would be a dip in an uptrend. And I would be personally looking to take longs if we get back down to that range. And then again, I would also wait. I would wait and see how the structure shakes out. Maybe there's something I can work with in here. But I need to see 37.50 recaptured. Solana, not good. I mean, BNB, not good. BNB's breaking down too. I put out a tweet. I mean, and BNB is a market leader. When BNB does well, altcoins are doing well. And this thing's rolling over. And I put out a tweet like right up here. I said BNB is rolling over. And not so good, right? You lose it. Here's your MA50. Here's maybe like what we don't want to see with Bitcoin. Starting to close below the weekly MA50 for the first time since here. And then boom. And lost to this major pivot. So we're seeing definitely a weakening in market structure in Solana. Wanted to hold here, held nicely temporarily at the MA200 daily, which, by the way, is the trend in classical charting, and it failed there. So Solana, yeah, I mean, there's no reason, unless it can recapture 175, I think you can wait and maybe look to see what it does in that 145 area, which we've spent a lot of time talking about. As a reminder, all these videos are still available on my YouTube channel, my prior streams. This goes into quick market updates. I do these once a week, right? I would do them more, but I really try to save myself. I save my mojo. And I'm doing Bitcoin Live, right? Just a reminder, Bitcoin Live twice a week. But let's get to your questions. You've been very patient. 1036, yeah. So let's get to your questions. Everybody, by the way, thank you for being here, whether you're watching live or you're watching on replay. When you show up, you give me your energy. I get hyped up. I want to give back. I love your comments. I love your feedback. Good, bad, and ugly. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. And as a reminder, all my books are free on my YouTube channel. Let's get to the chat room. Let's see how everybody's doing. What's up? Andrew Som, Dr. Gold Silverbug, Wing, Kashman, Chocolate, Arjit, Andrew, a bunch of names. And if I miss your comment, I apologize, but it's just me. I'm not like I don't have a brand manager. I just manage all my stuff. I don't have a moderator. So let's get to some of these questions. So Yao Mamedi wants me to look at the hype chart. Yeah, not so good. And you see, I did put out a tweet where I said this is a logical spot for a lower high on hype. This is a number of days back, but I did put out a tweet where I said this is a logical spot for a lower high, and it would make sense here. Let me see if I can pull it up in the other window. Because just of the wick structure, you start to see these upper wicks. And here we go. Let's get this in there. All right, so I put out this tweet. I basically said, logical spot for a lower high on hype. And what's the idea of a lower high? Well, when you're in a consolidation, right? When you're in a consolidation, which is fine, an equilibrium, and again, I have a video on the equilibrium, move up, you have a high, a lower high, a higher low, lower high, higher low. You look for a tightening range. But you're also in a corrective trend here, lower high, and it's a move against the broader trend. So I put out this tweet and I said, logical spot for a lower high on daily. And it's basically saying, look at this candle weakness, right? I'm saying, look at this price advance. We see the breakout. We see the two-level filter breakout, right? The two-level filter, again, I have a video on the two-level filter in the trading encyclopedia, and it's just a way for you to not jump into it too early. So, for example, like if you have a downtrend, you have the price trending down, you can do it in the other way, uptrend too. So you have a series of peaks, and you draw on your descending trend line. So rather than, let's say it breaks the trend line, rather than just going long, because you can ride the trend line down, you wait for some type of a major lower high to be broken and use that to manage your risk. That's the two-level filter. So we had that two-level filter here. So you had a nice break in a long, but then we started to see this candle weakness. Big green body, smaller green body, spinning top, and then doji, right? So that's another video topic I have a video on in the trading encyclopedia called candle body progression. We see the progression of the candle body size as a representation of momentum. So here's your lower high spot and just weakness from that. So we got our lower high on hype and it failed to hold on the bullish throwback. So that was not so good. And that's when the trend really started to look in trouble, when it failed to hold at 43. And I put out a tweet where I said it was starting to fall off of a cliff. This is around here. Now we're back to the next logical support level right around somewhere in this range. So it's got support. We have some initial wick and response, but it's clearly in a corrective channel. And you're going to need to see this trend of lower highs broken. Overall, it's actually not a bad chart. This is as it is right now, as it stands, as we're speaking today, and on a Tuesday, October or November, whatever, the 4th, 5th, November the 4th. I mean, it's still one of the better looking charts. But I mean, if it starts to lose these lows around $35, I would be like, look out below, because you're going to probably see a big drop. So the trend is definitely rolling over. I mean, you could even call it a complex head and shoulders if you want, forming, where a complex meaning here we have multiple shoulders. We actually have 2 right shoulders, 2 left shoulders. There's a complex head and shoulders. Here's your neck base. So you just see how important this level is. The trend is in trouble. But that being said, hasn't broken down yet. And it's still holding roughly at the MA200. So those are some things to walk through. Ram says authenticity is the highest frequency. Let's go. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Andy says Bitcoin is under the 200 week on the weekly chart. It's not? What are you talking about? And I talked a lot about Bitcoin earlier. You can circle back. I talked about needing 107.5 flip and the importance of the swing low. Bitcoin under the 200 week on the weekly. No, we're way above. Look at that. Beautiful. It's actually on the weekly chart. It still looks pretty good. Beautiful price distance. Beautiful price distance to a rising, MA200. So we're well above it. I'm doing well, Slim. Thank you. Happy Tuesday, Doctor. Gold Silver Buzz Weekly says gold says the weekly MA50 has been tagged. We talked about that in detail. Duncan says I recommend Dan from the Chart Guys. He is the GOAT. Cash Money says love the ideas and free education. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I love your feedback. Appreciate you so much. Okay, here we go. So Wangbo says, I'm waiting for a 4-hour close, waiting for a green close. Yeah, let's go to the 4-hour and let's take a little bit of a look. And there really is no relief yet on the 4-hour. I mean, just a straight push down. Not much going on here to be encouraged about. However, if you're going to be on the 4-hour, which is a reasonable time frame, again, in classical chart, and you drop to lower time frames when the price is at a key level, as it is now, arguably at the weekly 50, in the 4-hour, you see these lows. And what that tells you is a recapture of these lows can give cover to a long trade, whether you use 106.5 or you're waiting till a little bit higher, like I had talked about based on daily structure, right around 107.5, for example. But you're seeing a series of lows. If you're on the 4-hour, I think you have to wait until there's a recapture. There's really no evidence here just in the 4H, that a bottom is brewing yet. There's no relief yet, in my opinion. Pardon me, based on the 4H. Okay, Psalm Capital, good to see you, buddy, says, I'm getting a little bit excited. Let me recenter myself. All right, so what's going on? Psalm says, OBV daily seems to have flattened out. Last time we got an MA50 tag like this, but it seems to be dropping here. So look at the on-balance volume. On-balance volume is an indicator, okay? What it does is it adds up the volume in the green, subtracts the volume in the red, and essentially it should confirm the trend. You can use it for regular divergence. I have a video on regular and hidden divergence. I generally don't recommend using RSI, bounded oscillator, for regular divergence. In my view, it works better for hidden, which is a continuation, whole different topic, but I have a 3-minute video for you to watch. The comment was, last time we got a WMA50, that means 50 weekly moving average, SMA simple moving average. Seems like it keeps, OBV is flattening out. So OBV is dropping, not necessarily flattening out. Let's go to the weekly here. Let's take a look here. I said OBV on daily when we were at the weekly. So weekly 50 was back last time was in March. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's take a little look. Let's see if that's true or what I think about that. So that was around this period. So around this period, it was hitting the weekly 50 and the OBV flattened. Yeah. So that was an indication, kind of the concept of red light, orange light, green light. The trend slowly turns around. You often multiple bites of the apple. You can do stuff with OBV. You can draw like trend breaks. You can even do kind of the same things you do in price. And you don't necessarily take like a long trigger based off of this, but can give you confidence based on what you're seeing with the price, right? Here's just a simple 2-level filter. at 88K. I actually used this as an example for the video in the Trading Encyclopedia, the 2-level filter break. If you remember, I announced, super easy long trade here on Twitter. So we don't quite see that yet. It's just dropping with the price. There's no relief yet, in my view, that we're seeing yet with the OBV. OBV is not giving us any kind of hope yet. All right. Crypto says, hello, everyone. I'm new to the live stream. Thank you, Cheds, and your trading book. Thank you, Crypto. Which one did you read? I actually published 3 trading books: Trading Wisdom, Trading Quotes, and Trading Journal. And again, free versions of all my books on the YouTube channel. I like to spread the love. I want people to read my work. I'm actually working on my new book, which is a poker and trading crossover. And I'm going to go play a couple tournaments this week and some cash games. We talked about hype. Chocolate says, I see hype is at 68. You got humbled. Yeah, it's all good, homie. All good, brother, man. Arjit says, Cheds, I know you don't give much importance to the 4-year cycle, but we ended the cycle time-wise. What probability is it, according to you, that we bounce back from the MA50? So I talked a lot earlier about the 50 and some nuance. I did talk about how we're more sideways into the 50, which kind of makes it less likely to hold. It's just this general concept, a couple general concepts, and I have videos on all of these. But like, for example, like in classical charting, if you want this level to hold, you want like a quick drop into it, but a slow bleed is less likely to hold, number one. Number two, moving average interactions more meaningful in sharp trending markets. We are essentially sideways into the 50. So it makes it less likely to hold, right? But I talked a lot about the nuance of the weekly 50 and how to pair that, how to play that, with certain price levels. You can definitely go back and review that earlier. Arjit. Andrew wants to know, wondering what's the optimal cash or dry powder in a trading portfolio? I don't have that answer. I'm not a financial analyst. What I will say, and I talk about this in Trading Wisdom Part 1, Trading Wisdom Part 2, in my quotes book. You should never go all in. Like, you should always have like cash to respond, cash, stable coins, whatever, to the next opportunity. So that's like one thing. You always want to have some cash. What's the percentage? Like, you decide that, right? And forcing yourself, and I have a quote, I'll find it another time, but forcing yourself to hold a certain percentage in cash will force you to be more selective with the remaining liquid funds. Number one, so that's number two. What else I want to say? Number three, okay. You should avoid the need to instantly put your cash into play. So let's say you take profit or you capitulate or you sell. You don't have to instantly put that money into another position. So those are kind of the 3 things I would generally say about that. In terms of the optimal amount, I don't have the answer. It depends on your risk tolerance, your conviction, the plays you're in, what other baskets of investments or trades that you have, going on. I'm kind of trying to catch up with the chat room here. Crypto Gia says, there's more books I read, Trading Wisdom. Thank you. I actually just, my last book, The Trading Journal, I just recorded the audiobook. It should see that out pretty soon for those of you who have been waiting. Okay, MC Garrett, I have trouble holding my shorts when in profit. What do you recommend? I recommend scaling in and scaling out of your positions. I have a video on that. I believe it's one of the videos in the Trading Wisdom series, also in the Trading Encyclopedia. Just start to take partial profit. Like, let's say, for example, like one of the shorts I have I'm in play right now is ENA, right? So you can, for example, if you took a short, like on the breakdown, you took a short in the up thrust, when it does a leg down, you can just sell like 20%, 15%. When it does another leg down, sell another 15, 10%. Just take small partial profit. Because every time you sell some, every time you take profit or you trim a losing trade, it makes your remaining decisions easier because it represents a smaller percentage of your risk asset. So I just recommend scaling in and scaling out. Chocolate says, here to listen and learn. Good to see you. Smoked bacon, love your energy and knowledge. Thank you, man. And I love smoked bacon. Daryl says, you're the man. Thank you, Daryl. Do you believe OBV is a leading indicator? Very interesting, Falco. I don't know about that per se, like leading indicator, but you can for sure use it for regular divergence, right? For example, like if, I don't even need to see the OBV, but for example, let's say this price is doing this, but it was like big green, small red, big green volume, small red. The OBV would be a divergence because there would be accumulation. You would have the concept of counter trend volume, right? You're always looking for counter trend volume, even on consolidations, right? So we understand, we understand volume in a consolidation. And again, I have a video on this concept in the encyclopedia. But here's your flagpole. Let's say it's doing, we'll just call it again, a bull flag or a bull rectangle. You're going to get the most volume in the advance, and then it will slowly start to trail off generally, right? Volume trend until the pattern completes and it breaks out. Now, let's say it's doing this, but green candle up, red candle down, green candle up, red candle down. If the red candles have more volume than the green candles, you have counter trend volume, and that's something you would look for. And you can see that, and that's expressed in the on balance volume, right? So you can see oscillators in the price. And again, I have a video on that. Right? How to see the oscillators in the price. So is it a leading indicator? Volume is a leading indicator. Volume is a very important clue. The on-balance volume should confirm the trend. And when it does not, you should pay attention. Okay. Cheds, when the audiobook for book 3? Yeah, I actually just submitted book 3. You're referring to book 4, which is the trading journal. Book 3 is trading quotes. It's already out. I spent the last 4 months doing the audiobook for the trading journal. It's so hard. Every time, there's a lip smack, or there's a hard P, or I said something wrong, or there's some weird error. Editing, doing the audiobook is so hard. But I want all my books to be in my voice, so I did that. Okay. What do I think about Zcash? The thing is, why not talk about Zcash? Look at that. Here's the weekly chart. We'll go to the daily chart. It's just an unabated uptrend. It's really just holding primary uptrend support. And here, right, we're looking for counter trend volume. I'm not really seeing it, right? Nice green candle. We know the OBV is rising. I don't have to pull up the on balance volume to know what it's doing. We know it's going to be doing that. Let's pull it up. Let's see if I'm right. There it is. It's just rising, right? You can see it in the price because you can see the volume spikes in the green candles and less in the red candles. Now, if the price was doing this, but we were having more red volume spikes like this one, that would be concerning. You'd probably have it rolling over. But Zcash still looks really good. I don't see any warning signs yet. Sure, outside bar, sure. But I'd still give deference. I still would love to buy the dip on a clean throwback here, or even a little bit higher. It just still is one of the better looking charts. I'm going to give bulls the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Let's see here. Cash money. I'm in Ethereum from around 3,800. Okay. I was planning to DCA around this level, but now it seems it could go back to 2,600. Why? What happened to your conviction, man? Cash money, you had a plan. What's changed, right? You're always going to, you always say, I'd love to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum at that level. And then when it gets there, you get afraid. You either have a plan or you don't. Have conviction, follow through, or don't. Just manage your risk. I talked about my thoughts on Ethereum. I talked about, I'm concerned with it being below 3750, and I don't like the fact that it's back inside the broadening wedge. So I talked about that. You can go back and review my comments on that. Let's see. So let's go back to Bitcoin. Let's discuss Bitcoin for a little bit. I think that's why most of us are here. We're sitting right at the weekly MA50. I don't want to see this fail. I don't want to see the price start to close below the weekly MA50. That was an important, very important barometer in the 2021 run. And again, when the price started to close below, there was some concern. A couple of you had requested Dixie. I'll do that right now. Then I'll get back to Bitcoin. We'll go to the dollar index. What do I think about the dollar index? That's the weekly. What's the daily doing? All right, it's clearly flattening out. It's flattening out. This is red light, orange light, right? Red light, orange light. You don't quite have the 2-level filter yet, but it's just attempting to break a rounding bottom or a double bottom, Adam and Eve, if you want. So it's definitely price is advancing. Price, if you want to call it that. This is a composite of a basket of indexes, which is the dollar index itself, but it looks like it's flirting with rejoining the larger trend, which is a weekly uptrend right now. It's an unconfirmed weekly uptrend. Okay, I want to get back to Bitcoin because I want to circle back and really just put my imprint on this. I spent the beginning of the video talking about the importance of the weekly 50. We had the initial advance in 2021 with the weekly EMA 8, primary uptrend drops to the 50. And we've been giving bulls the same benefit of the doubt here as long as the trend holds. All these nice mean reversions were resets. These moves back towards the 50 reset the oscillators, allowed for a move higher. Got one. Move higher, right? Got one. Now we are flirting with breaking market structure. We are flirting with dropping back into this range. I talked about in Ethereum how we're back into the wedge. We're flirting with breaking back into this inverted head and shoulders. And again, with any kind of head and shoulders, so let's talk about a couple different ways. Let's say there's a normal head and shoulders, right? Head, shoulder, right? Again, and I have a video on this. I don't know if you heard me say that yet, but you don't trigger until it breaks the neckline. And if you're a bear, you then also have to take a long if the right shoulder invalidates. So this is two parts of construction. Of course, you look at volume, look at the slope of the neck baseline. You can have multiple shoulders. You look at the height of the shoulders, right? I have all that nuance explained for you in my educational videos. But if we apply that and we take a look at Bitcoin here, we don't want to see it back, number one, into this range, essentially this range here. And then if it was inverted head and shoulders, which it was, a decent fall through, we don't want to see it invalidate this right shoulder. And this right shoulder is also the major swing low. So it's got to hold at 98K to 100K zone. If it doesn't, we're in serious trouble. And maybe I'll spend some time taking a look at that. But we're flirting with closing below the weekly 50. We don't want to see that happen. As bad as it is, you can still be ready for a bounce so you're not sidelined. So you could take a long on a recapture of, let's say, 1075, for example, okay? You may say, Cheds, well, what do you mean recapture? Is it a daily close? Is it intra-candle? Well, that's going to be up to you, how you trigger specifically. Again, you can go to the Trading Encyclopedia, check out the confirmation video. Could be one daily close, could be intra-candle, but a recapture, or even just a simple wick, even just price back up above, not even 1075, but using this recent structure, recent wick lows around 1065 and the height of this candle, you can use that as a recapture. So you can play with momentum if we get a momentum recapture. But in the meantime, we're pushing down. We are flirting with we have several days, but we're testing this area and we really want to see it hold. MA50 holds. I think we're okay. We can continue with the trend. MA50 fails and we fail to hold this higher swing low. It's a big problem for the trend. And we're really going to start to step back, and probably start to talk about, 60K, low 60s, somewhere in this range. It's a pretty big drop from here if we get to that spot. So that's why I want to see it hold here. That's why I really want to see it hold here. And my technique has been to give bulls the full benefit of the doubt in these prior consolidations to the 50. That's paid off quite well if you followed along with me. And so I'm still going to give bulls deference until the weekly MA50 holds. That's why it's so important. That's why we're watching it. And that's why we're at such a key inflection point here today. So folks, thanks for watching. Just to remind you, if you're looking for an exchange, check out BingX, my favorite exchange. I am a founding analyst at Bitcoin Live. I do a twice a week full market report every Wednesday night, every Sunday night. I'm on Twitter all the time, posting out chart ideas and thoughts. I have studied TA professionally, classical charting, Japanese candlestick theory, and I'm teaching it to you for free on my YouTube. Really recommend the Trading Encyclopedia. Every day there's a brand new video. Look at all these things. What's the rate of change? What's a high and tight? I mentioned that today, high and tight. Go watch a video on it. Just watch these videos. Go binge watch it. Can really, really, really level up your TA. I've got great interviews. I just did a great one with Chartman Dan. I published 4 books. They're all free in various versions on my YouTube. So soak it up and enjoy my stuff. Thank you so much for being here, folks. If you're watching live, thanks for hanging with me. Show some love. If you're watching on replay, it's tomorrow, it's a week, it's a month. All good. I'm glad you decided to stop by. So, folks, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoy that I can click a few buttons and I can go live and share with you my thoughts, and I'm happy I've done that. So we're going to finish off, as always, with a little bit of dancing with the Church of 8 Wheels. That's my outro song. And again, thank you so much, folks. So let's do this. Thank you, everybody.